The substance showed us what sorts of body horrors happen when we put unknown liquids inside us. Now, there's an Indonesian Netflix horror that lets us see the effects of the elixir. Is this just retreading on familiar ground, or does it give us something new? A dysfunctional family runs a renowned herbal medicine business, but when the owner attempts to innovate by creating a new recipe, he ends up triggering a terrible outbreak. So you'll see right within the first couple of minutes that this is yet another zombie film. And just like we've seen with so many before, somebody who's looking for a special cure or health scheme ends up creating a concoction that just ruins humanity. We follow a husband, his wife, and their young son who are on their way to visit the patriarch of the family, who also happens to be the owner of that company that ends up unleashing the zombie apocalypse. Now, the whole family, they're not completely kind to each other, and thanks to some quick and clever exposition, we get the gist of why there's so much underlying animosity and turmoil. The action starts up almost immediately, and what this zombie film does really well that many as of late haven't done is create some gnarly and horrid visuals. If you've got trypophobia, this is going to mess you up. I loved the creativity in showing us how the decay and transformation progresses. From the start of pulsing and discolored veins to then patches of skin that look similar to a honeycomb. They break out then in random spots. And then there's the bile spurting and eye discolorations, which pretty much mark the final evolution. The movements, they're eerie, unsettling, creating a mix of the rage virus from 28 Days Later and the hive mentality of World War Z. Now, we don't get a ton of background info on our characters. Strangely enough, though, we did get enough so that I understood a few of their motivations, and then I began to connect with them. I felt more anxiety for them because this is all taking place in a rural and remote area that isn't hugely populated. I mean, there are enough people to create a ravenous horde when infected, but it's not like this is all taking place inside a city backdrop. The isolation actually makes this feel a little more dire because help it's not readily available, meaning if you're under attack by these bloodthirsty fiends, you're just pretty much SOL. Even though I had an ominous feeling about several of the characters, they do make some severely stupid decisions early in the movie. I really want all future zombie films to have characters that have actually seen a zombie movie. Here, when someone transforms and then starts spewing black goo from their mouths and then are viciously trying to eat a loved one, we have characters who are attempting to reason with the rager, even asking questions like, "Are you okay? Why are you acting this way?" These are laughable, and they did manage to break the tension that was present. Now, thankfully, after a bit, most of the characters, they wised up and stopped inquiring with the chompers and then just started running. I also appreciate the compressed timeline of this story. It begins in the afternoon and only lasts through the night. Then this portion of the character's journey is just done. I mean, in this instance, it sort of reminds me of Return of the Living Dead. All hell breaks loose in the span of just a few hours, and we have to see who's left standing when the sun comes up. And the reduced time span also then amps up the suspense to where the outcome feels almost futile, which isn't a great feeling for a romance or a comedy, but it is awesome for creating dread within a horror. As is probably to be expected, there is a large level of predictability within the story arc. But even with a lot of that obviousness, I was still shocked when they went a bit of Game of Thrones on some of the cast. I say that because I had actually started to feel attached to some of the characters, which wasn't a wise decision. Now, the movie does come across as a little long, mainly when we're watching the non-flesh eaters just argue back and forth about their next move. It gets tiresome, repetitive, but it's still not as bad or even time-consuming as those characters questioning their zombified loved ones that was earlier in the story. The movie's almost 2 hours, and it would have been even more taut and I think intense with some efficient plot points and whittled down areas. Now, surprisingly, there is quite a bit to like about the Elixir. It's not incredibly unique. The storyline is absolutely predictable. The characters make some terribly stupid choices, and the movie's a bit long. But despite all of that, the makeup, practical effects, special effects, emotive performances, and camera work with the character movements all combine to craft a narrative that is visually gross and emotionally exciting. I was fidgeting in the final act, not because I was bored, but because the tension kept rising. My brain knew what was going to happen next, but my sympathetic system, it was on high alert. This isn't the greatest zombie film, and it's certainly not the most novel entry in the genre, but it does make for a fun one-time watch to take in some nasty imagery and suspense. There's no sex or nudity, some profanity, and a ton of gory violence. I give the Elixir 3 out of 5 couches. So what's a go-to movie that you watch during spooky season? I've already watched In the Mouth of Madness, and then I've got Autopsy of Jane Doe and The Taking of Deborah Logan in my queue. But I would love to hear what you got on the schedule in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.